You're not avoiding life. You're avoiding the wound that life keeps trying to show you. It told you to move on, to stay strong, to keep going. But what if your exhaustion isn't from weakness? It's from carrying pain that was never given space to breathe. Most people aren't stuck because they lack motivation. They're stuck because their nervous system is still tangled in an old trauma loop. That invisible knot, the one that tightens every time you try to grow, isn't random. It's your unconscious protecting you from what it still believes is dangerous. Feeling. And here's the hard truth. If you never stop to meet that pain face to face, it doesn't disappear. It just mutates into procrastination, emotional numbness, shame spirals, anxiety, and a life that feels like it's always buffering. Carl Jung knew this. What you avoid doesn't just vanish. It becomes your fate. That's why you might look functional on the outside, but inside, you're locked in survival mode, trapped in patterns you swore you'd outgrow. But here's the twist. Your pain isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to point the way out. And the moment you stop running and start listening, everything changes. In this video, we'll decode the hidden architecture of your inner blocks. We'll walk through the real reasons behind your paralysis. And you'll see how what you once called failure is actually the beginning of your return to self. The pain that can't be seen but rules everything. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It whispers, quietly, relentlessly. And over time, that whisper becomes a map, shaping decisions that never get made and dreams that always seem just out of reach. Carl Jung called it the shadow, that invisible weight buried deep in the unconscious. It's the pain we learn to ignore but never actually left behind. Like a phantom limb, it still itches, it still aches, and it still moves us, though we swear we're in control. But here's the truth. If you never face it, it never stops pulling the strings. Most people don't even realize their mind's playing a game with them. They chalk up hesitation to laziness, fear to being realistic, when in fact the psyche is just trying to avoid reactivating a past wound. Psychoanalysis shows that these wounds aren't gone. They're hidden, repressed, stored like files in the unconscious. That's why we flinch when love gets too close or stall when an opportunity feels too big. It's not the moment itself. It's the echo of a memory our mind hasn't made peace with. You're not weak for hesitating. You're haunted. Take someone who freezes every time they're about to speak in public. It's not because they lack confidence. It's because, long ago, they were laughed at when they tried to express themselves. That shame stayed. It lives as resistance, as fear, as sabotage. The mind learned, better stay quiet, and so it obeys. That's the art of survival, but it becomes a cage. The same goes for people who can't start projects, commit to love, or say what they really feel. They're not broken. They're bound by an inner life that never got the attention it deserved. And it's not just about the past. That pain becomes philosophy, a silent belief system. I don't deserve rest. I'm not good enough. Life is struggle. These inner dialogues are loud, but they're rarely questioned. We confuse repression with resilience, stoicism with strength. But numbing the wound doesn't make it heal. It just delays the explosion. Wisdom isn't about avoiding the fire. It's about learning how to walk through it with your eyes open. The human mind isn't the enemy. It just wants you to stay safe, even if that means keeping you stuck. And here's the most dangerous part. When pain becomes familiar, it becomes home. The mind prefers what's known, even if it hurts. That's why we keep circling the same block, dating the same people in different bodies, running from the same ghost in 100 costumes. The unconscious is loyal to what it knows, not what you need. But what if you could see it? What if you stopped running just long enough to feel it? Because feeling, real feeling, isn't the enemy. It might just be the key to unlocking the tension your body has carried for far too long. How the body and mind react to repression. You don't have to remember the trauma for your body to carry it. That's the wild part. While the mind forgets, the nervous system remembers. Chronic tension, fatigue that doesn't go away with sleep, a clenched jaw, tight shoulders. These aren't just physical quirks. They're emotional residues. Carl Jung would say that the psyche, when not heard, speaks through the soma. When the pain of the inner life is silenced, the body screams. It's like trying to hold your breath forever. The system eventually forces a gasp, even if it feels like anxiety or burnout. Meanwhile, the mind becomes a master of distraction. It invents chaos just to avoid stillness. That's why some people can't stop scrolling, working, overthinking, overplanning. They're not just busy, they're avoiding a silence that might reveal too much. Repression doesn't erase emotion, it buries it. And buried things rot. Eventually, that emotional mold seeps into thoughts, behaviors, and even dreams. If you constantly feel like you're on edge for no reason, it's not random. It's a nervous system stuck in fight or flight, reacting to a ghost it was never allowed to confront. You've probably seen this up close. The friend who's always tired but never sleeps well. The overachiever who burns out every 3 months. The person who lashes out over small things, then feels shame for days. These aren't character flaws, they're symptoms. Signs that the human mind and body are working overtime to suppress what needs to be expressed. Think about it. When was the last time you gave your emotions space to breathe? Not fix, not label, not judge, just feel. That simple shift could start a chain reaction of healing you didn't know you needed. And here's where it gets subtle. The defenses you created long ago, perfectionism, detachment, hyper-independence, were brilliant. They saved you, but now they become the very walls that keep you from peace. It's like wearing armor in your own home. Over time, that armor becomes heavy. It doesn't just protect, it isolates. That's why true healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the fear moved in. And yes, that takes time, but it starts with listening to the body, the tension, the fatigue. They're not inconveniences, they're messages. You'll notice the shift when relaxation starts to feel unsafe. When stillness makes you squirm. That's the moment you know. Your system is wired to anticipate pain, not peace. And until that changes, even joy will feel threatening. That's why meditation, breath work, somatic therapy, these aren't luxuries. They're necessities. They help rewire a system that's been stuck in survival mode. So before diving into goals or growth, ask, can I even rest without guilt? Because the path to liberation doesn't begin with action. It begins with allowing yourself to stop and feel. Self-sabotage as an unconscious mechanism. It's wild how clever the mind is. It'll ruin your plans just to protect you from pain. That's self-sabotage, not laziness, not lack of discipline, but a brilliant, unconscious attempt to keep you away from what it associates with danger. Carl Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate. That's exactly what's happening when you ghost opportunities, tank relationships, or keep forgetting to follow through. You're not broken. You're scared, and your psyche is just trying to help in its own twisted way. Imagine this. Someone gets a great job offer, but never sends the final email. Why? Because deep down, success means exposure. People watching, judging, expecting. If they grew up being shamed for standing out, the mind will associate visibility with rejection. So it shuts it all down. Same goes for love. If intimacy once meant betrayal, the unconscious will pull you away the moment it starts to feel safe. Ghosting, nitpicking, cheating, isolating. It's not because you don't want connection. It's because the shadow still believes connection equals pain. The human mind protects, even when it suffocates. And don't get me started on the inner critic. That voice that says you're not ready, not good enough, not meant for this. That's not your truth. It's your past speaking. Maybe it sounds like a parent, a teacher, a bully, or just the echo of 100 micro-traumas. Psychoanalysis shows us that these voices live in the unconscious, repeating until they're questioned. If you don't interrupt them, they shape your whole damn life. That's why journaling is powerful. Not because it's poetic, but because it exposes what's been hiding. Try writing out your inner critic's words. Then ask, Who first said this? Healing this isn't about forcing yourself to do more. It's about building safety where there wasn't any. That might mean practicing saying no without guilt, trying therapy that includes somatic work, or simply letting yourself fail without spiraling into shame. Start with tiny experiments in safety. Go to a new place alone. Let someone in on a secret. Break one rule you made to survive. Each act chips away at the old programming. Self-sabotage isn't stubbornness. It's a system trying to keep you alive. You don't fix it with discipline. You heal it with understanding. And the irony? Most people sabotage the very thing they crave. Love, success, peace. Because it's unfamiliar. And the unconscious is loyal to what's known, even if it hurts. But what if you could teach it something new? What if your nervous system could learn that safety doesn't have to come from hiding, pleasing, or controlling? It can come from presence, truth, and expression. But to do that, you'll have to confront the patterns that feel like home and ask if they still deserve to be. The emotional stagnation loop. People don't repeat the same patterns because they're clueless. They do it because it feels safe, emotionally familiar. And that's where the trap is. Carl Jung taught us that what we don't bring to consciousness returns as fate, looping until we're ready to meet it head-on. You don't stay stuck because you're lazy. You stay stuck because moving forward means bumping into pain you swore you'd never feel again. The mind knows this. The shadow knows this. So it cleverly wraps stagnation in logic. It's not the right time. I'm just not ready. Maybe later. Lies. But comfortable ones. That's the thing. Most fear isn't fear of failure. It's fear of what success will expose. Think about someone avoiding a creative dream. Deep down, it's not the dream that's scary. It's being seen. It's risking disappointment, rejection, or, God forbid, discovering their best isn't enough. That's not fear of the future. It's the past knocking on the door. The unconscious doesn't care about your goals. It cares about keeping you away from anything that once caused pain. So it holds you in place, quietly, gently, like emotional quicksand disguised as being responsible. And the worst part, the mind makes it all sound so reasonable. It spins brilliant justifications. I need more time. I'm not like those people. I need another course first. But underneath those narratives is paralysis, emotional paralysis. And the longer it lasts, the more the human mind forgets that movement is even possible. That's why people binge self-help but never apply it. Why they start 100 things and finish none. Because change threatens the status quo of the unconscious. And that status quo is rooted in repression, avoidance, and old pain posing as logic. Let's bring it home. Ever tried to meditate and immediately felt restless? Tried to write and couldn't focus? Sat still and suddenly felt anxious? That's not random. That's resistance. The moment we try to access our inner life, the shadow flares up. It says, don't go there. And unless we recognize it, we listen. We walk away. And the cycle continues. This is why practices like shadow work, breath work, or expressive journaling aren't just trends. They're tools. They loosen the grip of the past. They soften the edges of our defenses so we can finally breathe. But don't expect the mind to clap for you when you begin. It won't. It'll throw everything it has, distractions, fatigue, doubt, to keep you in place. Because stillness threatens the illusion that avoiding pain means avoiding suffering. But that's a lie. Avoided pain just leaks out sideways, into relationships, choices, and even the body. To change the loop, you don't need to become someone new. You need to reclaim the parts of you that were left behind when the pain first started. And to do that, you'll need to stop running from the very thing that holds the key. Paths to unlocking and release. The only way out is through. That's not just poetic. It's neurological, emotional, and spiritual truth. Pain that isn't felt doesn't vanish. It calcifies. Carl Jung understood that confronting the shadow wasn't just about introspection. It was about transformation. The human mind will avoid discomfort like the plague. But healing begins when we stop negotiating with our emotions and start honoring them. That means sitting with grief, naming shame, letting anger move, Not in theory, in the body. Through sound, movement, writing, breath. Because expression is how energy moves. Suppression? That's how it rots. Start simple. Write without filters. Let the pen speak what your lips can't. Don't worry about structure. Dump the mess. Use prompts like, what am I pretending not to feel? Or, if my sadness could speak, what would it say? This isn't about pretty sentences. It's about truth. Combine that with breath work. 5 minutes of deep, circular breathing, and notice what rises. Maybe it's heat. Maybe tears. Maybe silence. That's the signal. The unconscious is opening. This is the art of practical philosophy. It's not abstract. It's about action. Emotional hygiene. Showing up for yourself like nobody ever did. And don't underestimate the body. Trauma is stored somatically. That means therapy isn't always about talking. It's about shaking, stretching, groaning, humming. Somatic experiencing, EMDR. Even dance can access places the mind can't. One practice. Lie on the floor and let your body move intuitively. Trust the tremors. That twitching in your leg or tightness in your throat. That's your system recalibrating. The shadow doesn't just live in your thoughts. It lives in your tissues. Releasing it requires presence, not perfection. This is individuation in action, reclaiming what was once exiled. Now let's talk courage. Real courage isn't loud. It's choosing to feel instead of fleeing, to cry without rushing, to ask for help without shame. That's the work. Not always glamorous, but it's gold. This is what art is born from, what wisdom is carved from. People chase happiness, but it's wholeness they're truly after. And wholeness demands you stop rejecting your pain. You don't have to heal it all today. Just stop abandoning the parts of you that hurt. That's when the self begins to emerge. Not the persona, not the mask, but the real, grounded, present you. And when the pain is no longer the enemy, when it becomes teacher, you begin to move again. Slowly, organically, not to escape, but to embody. This is when your inner dialogue changes. When resistance gives way to curiosity. When what once felt unbearable becomes a source of strength. Growth isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. And sometimes, you'll meet the same pain again, just deeper. But next time you won't flinch. You'll recognize it. You'll welcome it. And maybe, just maybe, that's when you'll finally feel free enough to rest and ready enough to rise. So now the question isn't, what's wrong with me? It's, what pain have I never been allowed to feel? Because behind every stuck emotion, there's a moment you had to survive. A moment your inner life froze, and your mind buried it for protection. But you're not that child anymore. You're not in that moment anymore. And your healing begins the second you stop fighting your pain and start listening to it. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about freeing yourself from the silence that's been eating you alive. Ask yourself, what's the emotion I always dodge? What conversation do I keep rehearsing but never have? Where in my body do I feel tight? And what if that tightness had a voice? The answers won't show up in a neat package. They'll arrive in fragments. Through tears, shivers, restless nights. But that's how consciousness expands. Not by pretending to be whole, but by having the courage to meet what's been hidden in the shadow. You've already survived the pain. Now it's time to transmute it into presence, expression, and self. If this resonated with you, if something inside you stirred while reading, then don't let it be another insight you forget by tomorrow. Use it. Take action. Comment below. What's one emotion you've been afraid to feel? What part of yourself are you finally ready to stop abandoning? Let's heal in the open. And if you want to keep going deeper into the mind, the shadow, and the art of living with truth, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because this is just the beginning.